This is the Conservative American Message, hosted by yours truly, the one, the only, Cam Lau. Before I get into today's episode, I have to ask one small favor. Please go ahead and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen and share the show with your friends. It really helps us grow the show. We've had to turn down multiple sponsors that just don't align with our values, so I'm totally relying on you guys to help us grow this thing. Thank you for your continued support. So if you want to go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you're running for.
Definitely. I'm Dr. Nelva. I am a 20-year veteran of a trade school. I founded and ran my own trade school for over 20 years. I am also a mother of 3. I homeschooled my oldest child. My kids are doing amazing now, but I am a very strong believer in school choice. And I'm running for superintendent of schools in the state of Georgia.
So what things have you experienced in your life throughout your career that have shaped your views on education?
Well, I guess just the fact that I've been so involved with my own children's educational journey, as well as my experience with that trade school that I mentioned. So I'm a very strong proponent of trade schools. I believe that every high school student should graduate with a trade school certificate, whether or not they're college bound. Because if you're college bound, you can use it as an internship. And if you're not college bound, it's a career. I myself obtained a trade school certificate the summer between my junior and senior year in high school. And I used it to pay my way through college. And when I finished my degree, I was able to get a really good paying job because I had a experience in the industry that I was getting my degree in. I also am a strong proponent, as I mentioned, of school choice because I believe that parents, not the school system, should decide what learning environment their child works best in. And so here in the state of Georgia, we are now 38th out of 50. And that is really bad statistics, okay? 70% of our 4th graders are not proficient in reading, and 76% of our 8th graders are not proficient in math. And these are declines under the current superintendent of schools who's going on his 12th year in office. And so we need new leadership, new vision, and these are the things that inform my decision to run for office.
So what things are causing this decline in excellence in Georgia schools?
It's just a lack of leadership, really, at the end of the day. I don't know if you've heard of the Mississippi Miracle. They made the decision that they were going to make literacy a priority. They did not allow any 3rd graders to move on to 4th grade if they were not reading. And they not only held them back, but they poured resources into these children and made sure that everyone from the early ages that were surrounding these kids were very much in tune with the priority of teaching literacy. Not saying that other states are not doing that, but if that is your focus and your priority, you're going to pour the resources needed and make sure that you're teaching each child in their learning style. Not every child is an auditory or visual learner, right? And so we need to make sure that we are individualizing learning as much as we can and ensuring that all of these children are successful. I don't know if you're familiar that when prisons are built based on the reading levels of 3rd graders. So if you have a slew of 3rd graders that are not reading, they know how many prisons they have to build because they can determine who is going to end up in a life of crime based on their lack of reading.
Wow. So how much does the state of Georgia spend per child? Because that's always something that I find interesting, that we spend a lot of money per child. It seems like that we should be able to do it efficiently at such a large scale.
So in the state of Georgia, over 50% of our budget goes to administration. So it's very top heavy. So if you were grading, say, a nonprofit, it would get an F because nonprofits are graded based on how much percentage of their revenue goes to administration. And a good nonprofit is only 10%. So in Georgia, 50% of the funding slated for education is going to administration. So that needs to change, right? In Georgia, the funding follows the institution, the schools, not the student. So in states like Florida, for instance, the funding follows the student. So that's another thing that needs to change. We have a very outdated and complicated QBE system, budgetary system, that where the money does not follow the student. And that's why we don't really have a true school choice. Even though we have a Promise Scholarship Act, it's full of red tape. And so we need to make sure that we're changing those very, systemic issues first and foremost, right? And then we need to make sure that we are using money wisely and efficiently. I was just talking to a representative the other day, and he was telling me how there was a vendor out there that was teaching character development, and yet we have other programs that are going to do this for free, like private institutions that partner with public schools, and they do this at no cost to the public school, and yet we're spending money on this other end, millions of dollars. So we just need to be wiser with the resources that we do have and ensure that we're not wasting kids' time. I feel that so much of their learning, K through 12, is just wasted on things that we know does not work, or we're hoping it works, like if they're guinea pigs. And we know things that work. We know phonics works, for instance. Why are we moving away from phonics? We know we have very specific things that we know have results attached to them, and yet we're constantly changing curriculums and changing textbooks, and nobody benefits from that. Only the curriculum companies and the textbook companies.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the Democrats kind of have come to this point that the more you spend on education, the better education's going to be, but yet we continue to see it not go that way. So what metrics do you think we should use to measure the success of our schools?
Really, it's literacy, Cam, at the early stages. So that third grade literacy level needs to be our gold standard. And then we need to look ahead to high school. And we don't need to just graduate students. We need to make sure that they're workforce ready. And the reason that I'm a proponent of trade schools, and we're not just talking about blue collar trades here, okay? Yes, we need the electricians and the plumbers and the welders, okay? Because a lot of the baby boomers are retiring and they're going to need those positions filled. However, there's a slew of medical certifications that you can get, right? And those aren't blue collar jobs, but they are very much needed, and they're very good paying jobs, right? Careers, really, oftentimes. Same with technology. You can get coding certifications, Google certifications, that you can bypass college and make a very good paying, right? Good paying jobs just with those certifications. So we need to equip students at the tail end, at the beginning, definitely with literature, right? Give them really strong foundation. And then we need to equip them right before they're casted out into the world, and make sure that they're workforce ready.
Do we need to be relying more on like standardized testing, like nationwide even?
So standardized testing isn't going anywhere. However, our focus needs to move away from the importance that we're putting on standardized testing. Unfortunately, here in the state of Georgia, and I believe this happens in a lot of other states, you're aborting or pausing learning and instruction during the months where you're teaching students how to pass a test. So from February through April, there's no instruction taking place. It's all learning how to pass a test, and that is a service. We are truly wasting students' time and teachers' resources. Valuable instructional time is being wasted in teaching students how to pass a test. So we definitely need to continue doing the test. We just need to take away the importance of it. The weight of it needs to be removed.
What do you see? Where should we emphasize, the opinions of versus the parents or the expertise of educators and administrators? Who should have the most say in their children's education?
It needs to be a partnership. So right now, parents do not have a lot of say, and that needs to change. We need to increase the amount of resources and the seat at the table. After all, when the children who have engaged parents thrive, period. Okay, yes, educators are important. Yes, a good school system is important, very much so. But if you have an engaged parent, they can thrive in any setting. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're empowering parents, which is why I'm such a proponent of school choice, because school choice tells parents, we recognize that you know your child better than the school system, and we recognize that if you truly want to take your child to another learning environment, we need to give you the resources and the tools to do so. Not everyone's going to take advantage of that because, again, public schools are very, very easy to digest for most people. It's free. They pick you. The school bus picks you up in front of your house and drops you off. A lot of the activities are free. So when you translate that to a private school or even homeschool, it's all on the parents as far as the finances and and if you're homeschooling, finding curriculums, etc. But we still need to have parents' involvement if their child is going to the public school system. We need to have them be fully engaged in their child's education.
What does Georgia currently have for school choice, and what would you like to see change?
So we passed a Promise Scholarship Act into law last year, and it's a good first step. Don't get me wrong, Cam. It offers $6,500 to parents whose children are in the bottom 25 percentile academic schools, and they can use it at a private school. Now, I like for that to expand. So similar to Florida, where they provide $8,000 to students, to families, and that's to any family member. So it doesn't have to be based on the academic rigor or standard or stat of your school. So any school, they can use that $8,000 too, and they can use it in any learning environment, be that charter school, private school, or homeschool. And so that's what I'd like to see here in Georgia, is for us to expand the Promise Scholarship Act.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's starting to become more of an issue, especially with younger parents. I mean, I homeschool my own children, and I think I looked at like almost half of my entire generation of Gen Z is leaning towards or already doing homeschooling in some form. But I wonder, how much do you see a role of the government involvement in homeschooling? Is there some type of issue with funding going towards homeschoolers that then there might be some type of standards set by the government?
If you're going to access the Promise Scholarship Act funding, or if you're going to access the government money, then there are going to have some standardization, whether that's curriculum choices, whether it's the number of school days that your child has to attend, and the metrics for supplying or submitting those that information. So definitely there's going to be monitoring if you're going to access those funds.
Okay. So how significant of a shift in funding would there be if you were in charge of Georgia schools?
So again, I would like to first and foremost change our outdated budgetary system. And so that's one of the first things I'm going to push for. I have two bills, Cam, that your listeners can find it on my website that I'm supporting. One of them is to sunset the NPEC, the Non-Public Education Commission. That's the commission, the state commission in the state of Georgia or State Department that oversees trade schools. And so I would like to make sure that we are outdated. It's an outdated program. They really are putting a lot of barriers and roadblocks to trade schools, and we need more public-private partnerships, not less. All right, and that, if we sunset them, that's a savings of $1 million. Okay, and then I also want to see us encourage LifeWise. I mentioned LifeWise. It's a program that provides biblically based character development. It's at no cost to the school, but they have proven results of improving behaviors throughout the schools that they are involved in. They reduce anxiety and depression and improve behavior. So it's a no-brainer to me that we make sure that we green light LifeWise in all school districts. And so there's another bill that actually was introduced last year that's going to be reintroduced. And I'm a very strong proponent of that bill. So those are the types of smart thinking that I'm doing. I know it's very anti-government to want to spend less, not more, right? But I'm a businesswoman. I know how to run a lean, mean machine, and so we need people with that type of business sense in government for sure.
Well, I think that's cool. You mentioned LifeWise. We're actually in our local area starting to get into the schools and stuff with LifeWise right now. So
Very,
I'm
very
glad to
nice.
hear that. Do you have a lot of issues with local school districts overspending?
Unfortunately, we do. Here in the state of Georgia, we have several superintendents that have had to resign over misspending and mishandling of their budgets. And again, because our budgetary system is so outdated and antiquated and very complicated, it doesn't lead to a lot of transparency. And so the very first thing that I'm going to do right after we change the budgetary system is require an audit, a statewide audit of all budgets throughout from every school system, because we need to have transparency. Taxpayers are spending the majority of their tax dollars are going to the school systems, and we're not getting a very good return on our investment. The least thing that we can do is have transparency from those that we're entrusting, not only with our dollars but with our children.
Do you think that we're not putting enough emphasis on taxpayers who maybe no longer have kids in the school system or choose alternative non-public schools, that even though they might not be participating in the public school, they should still have a voice being taxpayers?
Of course, everyone should have a voice. I mean, again, you're paid for it. So whether or not you have children in the school system or not, it's beside the point. If you're still paying for the schools, you have a voice because you are the stockholder, if you will.
And so how many of these educational reforms can you actually enact just day one, versus how much are you looking towards the legislature to make changes?
Well, the two main legislative requirements, I'm pushing for them right now, even before I'm elected. So, like I said, if you go on my website, drnelvalee.com, you will see it where it says sign the pledge. You'll find both of those bills that I'm a huge proponent of, and I've already been in contact with the sponsors of those bills to push those forward. So I'm not leaving it to chance, and I'm not waiting till I'm in office. Okay, but the other initiatives are executive decisions. A lot of it is leadership, Cam. It comes down to leadership. It comes down to someone that truly wants what's best for our children and is going to work really hard to get it done. So I don't know what our current superintendent, what his thoughts were when he first came in, but I can tell you he's been in office now going on 12 years, and we've only seen decline. So it's time for new leadership. It's time for new perspective. And I believe that a lot of it can take place with the right leader at the helm.
So what do you bring to the table that maybe the incumbent or other Republicans that are vying for this office lack?
So I have years of experience as both an educator in the K through 12, not only homeschooling my own child, but also substitute teacher. I have experience in college. Okay, I was an adjunct professor for over 10 years. I have experience in trade school, so I bridged the divide on all three levels. So I can speak to all of those and the requirements needed. And I can tell you, as a business owner, we should all be invested in our children, at the very least, knowing how to read, right? If we cannot continue to graduate students who need to have remedial training when they go to college or go to a workforce, right? So we should all be invested in the education of our children. So what I bring to the table, other than my expertise, is my energy and my leadership skills. I've been a leader for over 30 years. I can tell you that when I put my hand to the plow on any issue, I don't rest until it gets accomplished. That's just how I've been built, how I was built. And I have proven results for that. And so I can't speak for the others that are running, but I can tell you that's what you're going to get when you put me to a task.
Well, is there any other initiatives or different things that you want to see change that I didn't cover?
Well, we covered the main initiatives. I can tell you that I am going to be a transformational leader. One of the things that I believe in is having regular communication with all of my top brass, right? Town hall meetings with all of my principals and superintendents from day one. From day one, I would have a survey. So I want to hear from them. I believe in feedback, right? If we're going to get this done, it's going to require a team effort. And again, I know how to lead a team. And so we're going to require everyone to be on board to get this accomplished. But I would encourage your listeners to go to my website, drnelvalee.com. I have not only my platform and my speeches there, but other podcast interviews, as well as my books. I've written several books that I consider my written testimonies, if you will. And it tells you a little bit about my character and my perseverance.
Well, great. Yeah, we'll definitely include those links and stuff. Just as a reminder to voters in Georgia, when is the Republican primary?
May 19th. Now, here in Georgia, we have early voting. So you can start voting from the end of April. So please go early vote. I always choose the early vote because I don't like the long lines. So, go out early in the morning to your local school that has a voting place and go ahead and vote. Like I said, towards the end of April, you should be able to start early voting. But May 19th is definitely the deadline. Now, if any of your listeners are Democrats, they can choose a nonpartisan ballot and they can still vote for me. So.
Well, great. Yeah. This has been awesome. I appreciate all your insight, and I think that you do a fine job at Superintendent of Georgia Schools. So,
thank you so much for having me on, Cam.
Well, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Hey, thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.